welcome, sleepyheads, to a very early special edition of Life Support Live. Hello, Dr. Trek.
Hey, Dr. Ali, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? And this is the weekly live Star Trek show that helps us to boldly go in our own lives to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
You know, I believe a famous starship captain once said that. And I also believe another famous starship captain, who we're about to meet much more of, also said, wherever our mission takes us, we'll have a little fun along the way.
Do we know when we're meeting that captain again? Do we know? Do we have a date?
No, we don't. We don't. He's just that elusive boyfriend that someday we'll get a date with.
Well, I'm waiting.
Sometime 2022, sometime.
Hello, everyone. We're doing a special edition of Life Support Live. We're doing an Ask Me Anything. Now, there's a couple of reasons why there's so many changes here. One is we didn't have an episode last week. Larry was on an away mission. We did have a special Zoomy thingy. Thank you, Jared, for hosting that. That was just delightful.
A Zoomy chatty thingy is the official name.
A Zoomy chat. What did I call it?
A Zoomy thingy. You just left out the chatty.
The chatty is half the Zoomy thingy. How could I leave off the chatty thingy?
Chatty Cathy is very upset, and there's a
well, you can do the Zoomy thingy, or you can do the chatty thingy in the Zoomy thingy. So it requires both. So we had that last week, and then this week I have an away mission today. Larry has an away mission tomorrow, but we found this pocket of time in which neither of us is away.
This is burning in that pocket in time. So
they say time is the fire in which we burn, Larry. Did you know they say that?
They do say that, although I often say time is the mush in which we trudge. But, okay.
The they in that, it must be Elorians. Elorians must be the ones who say that, because I haven't heard anyone else say that.
I know. It kind of burns me up that they're the only ones that say it.
Well, just watch out. You don't want to go into the burn, because then you won't be able to travel anywhere, Larry.
The burn from them and they. Yeah. That's the original pronoun. You know, the original pronoun issue was they do this and they do that. So anyway.
Oh, man. Well, what we do in the Ask Me Anythings, folks, this is, I was going to say, Larry, it's a much more casual conversation. As if we don't have casual conversation on Life
I've
Support
been
Live.
meaning to talk to you about that. No, so everybody, listen, hey, if you are new to the show, well, welcome. This is very atypical. Forget it next week.
Welcome.
No, I'm saying that. Yeah, no. Our regulars are in the chat already. Everybody is saying hi and howdies and hellos here, wherever you are around the globe, because we've got them and glad to have them. Normally, we have a program that's structured where we have a theme for the week that's based. When there's new Trek, we base it on the new episode of the week, and that would be Lower Decks right now, which has been very fruitful, and it's multiplied with its especially
with its ambassadors. The ambassadors have multiplied.
But and then we have we do a mission briefing where we look at that theme across all the Treks, and Dr. Ali pipes in with an away mission for taking away.
Yeah, everybody, I'm piping here with an away mission.
Yes, and a counselor's log too helps. I have a K3 factor of backstage Trek, and then we get to the hailing frequencies. But I don't know if you've got it ready or not. Today's an AMA because we're starting early. We only have 1 hour today. It's almost like you could just put up the hailing frequencies card.
It's not a bad idea, Dr. Trek.
Look, we have structure and everything. Yes. So we can jump right to the end of the normal show and just see what everybody wants to talk about today. We can still talk about they're a lot less spoilery that we were worried before because there was a gap on everyone being able to see Codex. Yeah. That's not such an issue now, so I don't mind talking. It's been 2 days.
I don't mind. Larry, I don't mind talking either. I can talk.
Can you talk?
I'm happy talking.
Can we talk?
Let's talk. Let's talk about Trek, baby. Let's talk about Spock, baby.
Oh,
Let's talk about Kirk and Enterprise, Picard and Riker, and Subspace.
That's that song from Pitch Perfect. That's all the songs in Pitch Perfect. I think of them as the song from Pitch Perfect.
Well, Larry, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up those hailing frequencies. I'm going to I'm going to
See,
do a wide subspace, all frequencies. I'm talking AM, FM, all the way to subspace. All the frequencies, they're wide open. We are listening with at least one ear. At least one ear.
sounds like you are bouncing it off a passing tachyon black hole or something. Exactly what.
Tachyon black
Which
hole,
makes no sense.
sun, won't you
Makes
come?
no sense. Well, now
Travel through time, tachyon black hole, sun.
did somebody get their caffeine even at 9 in the morning?
I've got a full Ractigino. I might have crunched a few extra coffee
What?
beans into this brew today.
I forgot my life support live glass, so sue me. But
Oh, Larry. So, folks, do you all? It's great to see our familiar faces up
yeah,
a little earlier. Zahir is here, and Daniel. Daniel saying Commander Core. For now, I want to talk. Just talk. Folks, you got questions? We got answers. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about lower
hey,
decks? You want to talk about Trek that's coming up? Do you want to talk about texture, not trivia? Do you want to talk about feelings? Do you want to
oh,
talk about life forms? Boo doo doo doo. Precious little life forms. Doo 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 doo. Tiny little life forms. Doo 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 doo. Where are you?
there we go.
Boo doo boop 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 boop. Texture not trivia. Use the universe. Canon in a vacuum. Canon in a vacuum. What does that mean, Larry?
Cannon in a vacuum means if
Hit
it's
me.
not
I got the first ask me anything. I'm asking you something. What does that mean?
Cannon in a vacuum means if something hasn't been established on screen, like what was the name of the captain of that ship, or what was that name of that extra, or something.
Yeah.
What was their home planet name?
Yeah.
If it's not on screen yet, but it's been put out there in a at least a licensed novel or a comic book, even though comic books and novels aren't canon, much less like nonfiction books that try to fill a gap. If it's not on screen, but it's in a comic or a book or something, then use it until you get one on. Like, and if there's a vacuum on that data point, then use what's in the vacuum until something comes along on screen.
I like it. I like that.
Or that's what I say to people when they go, no, her name was blah blah, and I go, well, that was technically in a book or a comic, just so you know. Like, don't get your panties in a wad if they come out with something different eventually. But for now, sure, use it.
You know, I like that because it's a wide universe. It's a big sandbox. There's a lot of stuff. I know. There's a lot of stuff to use, and there's a lot of stuff to play with. Okay, let's see. I think we got some questions here.
No,
I was going to say Kelvin. No, not Kelvin. Zahir. Zahir says, besides the Kelvin universe, what is a doctor's biggest Star Trek related disagreement? Ooh, okay. Just started us off easy, aren't you, Zahir? Okay.
we don't talk enough anymore to be able to disagree.
Oh, I mean, I think Voyager. We talked about this in the last AMA. I think.
There's very little Star Trek that to me is worth arguing that much about. When you say disagreement, I guess.
Yeah. Do we disagree? What do we disagree on?
See, some people think if something is not my favorite, then I must. That's a leap. When people say, "Well, it sounds like you don't like that,"
Yeah.
like maybe the Kelvin universe. Okay, people may think I don't like the Kelvin movies.
Yeah.
But it's not that I don't like them. I just don't see much use for them because they haven't developed them. I thought they were a political, they were a structural creation that wasn't organic. They were created for a reason, whether that was even a needed reason or not. And they haven't organically grown because they're kind of pointless. But they have a reason and a function. But in the big picture of life, kind of the way I predicted in 2008-9, they don't, it's kind of like, yes, they existed. Yes, they're worth studying as a thing. But in the big swath of things, they're not, and as the years go by, unless something suddenly turns around, and never say never in Star Trek, but unless something turns around, there are going to be increasingly these weird little maybe 4 or 5, maybe that will happen, but in the big swath of time, compared to 800, titles, 750 hours, they won't mean as much because they're just the math. And
I,
but that's not to knock anybody who worked on them. That's not to knock any fan who enjoyed them, loved, especially the fans that came to Star Trek through the Kelvin movies. But in the big picture, I'm just saying that I have a bigger fish to fry, aside from just being able to be confident about them and how they were made.
I think I have I have a disagreement for us. I mean I agree with everything you said, Larry, and um,
Don't patronize me.
yeah, I
Don't
mean
patronize.
my thing on the Kelvin movies is it's Star Trek as a massive big budget tentpole, for better and worse, and with all the things that happen with a blockbuster, that's what we get, and there's a lot I really like about that. I think our biggest disagreement was probably whether or not we should number these episodes. Do you remember that? Do you, we
Oh,
yeah, our titles. Early on in the show, you wanted to number them, and I didn't want to number our titles for each episode.
okay.
And we had a big back and forth about this, and you were like, "No, it really shows how a show
Longevity.
is longevity." Yeah,
Yes.
and I was like, "Well, it doesn't really seem common convention in videos and new videos especially in YouTube. They're not like numbered. It's just it's the title." And yeah, I don't know how we settled that, but I mean, I can't even. Can you believe we were like that was the thing we
I
were
think you're making
discussing?
this up. I
I
think
got look at our message history.
you're needing some texture, not trivia here. I think it's what's happening.
This
No, but
was
that's, yeah. That goes back to in my early con days when we were doing conventions, and there were some people that wanted to just name it like it would be, FredCon 1992, and I'm like, no, let's do FredCon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we show
oh,
because
it's gone
you know,
back a long time. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, we got a question here. We got a question coming in from Phil. Phil's asking, was Lorca planned to be mirror from the concept of the show, or was it evolved from the storyline? Dr. Shrek, I'm turning it over to you.
Well, I think this is out there by now. I'm a little hazy on this, but my gut guess is when it comes to the first season Discovery, it was probably yes and yes and yes. Everything was so all over the place. I could see probably 5 different things and maybe in order. I'm gonna guess though that since they went to the mirror so
So fast.
by the final stage of early writing, I'm gonna say yes, it was intended all along, but I think that went through all kinds of shifts.
Do we know if Brian Fuller had planned out the jump to the mirror universe in the original premise? I don't
I'm
know if we know that.
not sure because the original premise was to be
The anthology series.
that smells like it came along like not in the second go round, but in the second of 7 go
Yeah,
round.
and we don't know to what degree
Yeah,
Brian Fuller was
yeah,
involved
yeah.
at that point.
So far, we don't so far. Now,
No, I can't wait for that book to come out. Dr. Trek, please write that book so I can read it.
well, Dr. Ali, please arrange for the publication of that book.
Hey, with our powers combined,
Ooh.
maybe
And
something.
the lifers. They
And
can,
there we go, there we go.
our lifers can demand it. They can demand it.
We'll do it live. We'll write the book live.
I
All
was
right,
doing my Cogley there, trying to anyway. I
Jared's got.
demand it.
I command it. Uh,
Books, my boy, books. Where we go?
we got a question coming in from Jared, a familiar face here to our lifers. Jared's asking if social media existed to the extent it does now in the 1980s. Why am I doing this voice?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
We
News
take
from the world.
Smell, New Jersey.
Yeah. WKHB life support. Okay. What are we doing here, Larry? We got a show to run.
You had a Jared question, all up and everything.
Jared question. If social media existed to the extent that it does now in the 1980s, how do you feel it would have impacted show development and the franchise during the Berman era?
I'm said the Berman era with a U started in 2017, Jared, but the Berman with an E era,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
other Berman, Rick Berman.
the Earth Berman. Wow. Well, here's the thing. Fandom in the paper and stamp fandom in the early Berman era, and then we started to have message boards.
Yeah,
We were like
in the
interneting
90s.
by the late 90s.
Yeah.
And that was affecting Star Trek. And I mean, you can talk to Ron and Brandon and all of them would talk about, oh, when I saw this on the internet. And Ron was, when the biggest thing in the beginning was the AOL Star Trek board, and Ron Moore did the radical thing of going on and answering fan questions directly. He was such a trendsetter. When Rick was such an ivory tower guy, and came down to talk to give us nonsensical things like, I think the fans are going to be very excited about this upcoming. I mean, that was the Rick Berman interview in Communicator magazine. We're very, very excited. We have some very, very interesting guest stars, and we have some very, very conceptual.
I remember reading those.
Yeah,
I remember all those.
It's like 3 pages of very, very.
This is why Ron Moore's AOL chats were so lovely. Because he was just straight to the audience, straight to the fans, and incredibly honest. He's like, "Oh yeah, I thought that was a bad idea, so we didn't do it." Or that didn't really come out that well.
I think what's his name, the Maquis guy? Not Etheridge.
I was about to say Cotteridge. No,
Effington.
Edinburgh. No, not Edinburgh. Eddington.
Eddington. He's like, I think Eddington's dead.
Yeah.
Somebody said, are we ever going to see Cedo Riker rescued from that Maquis? No. I came up a couple of times, but I don't think we're ever going to get back to it now.
This is the difference between executives and writers too, folks. If you ever want the honest truth here, go to the writers. They love talking about all of this stuff. They're very honest about it. An executive might not give you that much detail.
Well,
and then an actor, they might not even remember the episode.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's Portal 47. Can we have the real people that do Star Trek here? The actors are pretty people, but can we have the real people that run the shows? Yeah. They're great for a story or two, but after that, it's, they're all caught up in their chaotic magic of charisma. But I want to know about the show. Thank you.
So I think my perspective on this, Jared, is I think there would be way faster criticism and celebration of different episodes. I mean, could you imagine Best of Both Worlds in a social media era? I think it would just intensify all of that. I also think it would be a bit easier to find fellow fans. I love on Twitter. Twitter gives me topic recommendations now all the time, and it's always showing me random people on Twitter talking about Star Trek, which I love. And all the tweets are usually like, "Hey, Star Trek people, would love to connect with you. Any Star Trek people here?" And I just love seeing all the connection there. So I think connection would have been faster, more intensity in both good and negative ways. Would it have impacted production? Jared, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no because, Larry, I don't think it has much. I don't think it's really impacted production to any degree since Star Trek came back with the J.J. Abrams film and to this new era. I don't think it's changed or influenced anything that's happened with Star Trek.
Here's the thing. I think it's influenced. I mean, well, look, we had the just a general explosion for Anson Mount and Pike, and that's them to make not only to make a show out of Strange New World, not only to do a Pike show, but to bump Section 31 down in order and bring up, strike while the iron is hot.
You think Section 31 is bumped out, but that's exactly what Section 31 wants you to think.
Yeah. I don't see your Section 31 badge giving you the authority to talk about.
It's in. I've actually got my my Enterprise Strange New Worlds badge.
Yes, you do. Yes, you.
The Section 31 one is in a drawer. I keep it hidden. Larry.
It's hidden. Don't lose it. It's got a black half. It may be.
That's true. I'll only be able to find half of it.
No, I mean it's an interesting question. But then the business model of the time was 26 episodes, but that were half written but half filmed. I mean, now it's like the whole season is written by the time fans see it. So if there is a
Yeah.
reaction and impact it that comes through, it's going to be in the next season. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And back in the day, they would be a little ahead, but like by the time a season started, they were still writing the back half of that 26. So there were 2 or 3 months there for fandom reaction to something to filter in that could still be followed up even in the art. Not that they were serialized DS9 a little bit, but if there was like obvious reaction, oh my god, and a rating spikes, they might go, maybe we should bend that way. And maybe if it wasn't maybe it was like, okay, we'll have that character, like the reaction to Q, or sometimes it's like we just felt good with that or we didn't feel good with that, and sometimes it wasn't even an idea. Maybe it was like, oh well, we didn't like the Broadway actor that played Janeway's played Paris first, and I've gone blank on his name. But I think he's a Tony-winning actor. But they didn't like him, and then and the next time they brought back Admiral Paris, they waited like 2 or 3 years so everybody would forget,
So,
and then they recast Richard Hurd.
so
But those,
I don't know. I mean, Strange New Worlds.
that was a K3, by the way. But okay, yeah,
Strange New Worlds was definitely. I think everyone who saw that Enterprise crew and saw that Pike was really loved it. I mean, not only from fans but also behind the scenes. I think everyone, as they were filming that, they're like, you know what, that this might be a show.
well, that's Spock, and that's D. Kelly and Leonard Nimoy. That's Michael Dorn and Terry Farrell. I mean,
Yeah,
when in house they're watching the dailies, going, "Oh, that's just jumping off the screen at us. We got to go back to that."
let's go do more of that. Yeah, and then also we don't
When
want
it
to.
wasn't planned.
I mean,
That's
this is something you and I talk about all the time. Is let's look at these cyclical patterns. Um,
We
Fandom,
talk all the time about anything.
we do, and all the time is in quotes there.
Okay.
But this is something that you and I frequently talk about when we talk.
Hmm.
Is some of these cyclical patterns, and the fandom community has always been a very vocal and coordinated community. And so whether it was through social media or, as you said, the stamp and paper days, fans
Yeah.
made their voice known. And had we had Discovery back then, I think a lot of fans would written in and said, "Can we get a Strange New Worlds, please? Because we really like that. We want more of that." So, Jared, I don't know. I think there would be an intensity around the fandom. I don't know if there'd be any change behind the scenes, honestly. Um,
Well, I mean, I'm sure that they. I mean, they would read fan mail. They would read
yeah,
paper stamp mail and react to it. And
yeah.
sometimes they would go, "Well, this, if it was well thought, or if there was an obvious trend going, But I mean, it was their intention to always have a female captain when they thought they weren't going to be able to find someone for some idiotic reason somewhere in the wide world of women capable actors. Um, they always thought they were, but for a while it looked like not. But the fax machine went 24/7, which
Oh
That's
my
one of Janet's
gosh,
stories.
fax machines.
Yeah, when the fax number leaked out, and everybody was
Oh
like,
no.
don't you dare not have a woman cast now that you announced it." That was it's not like they reacted and said, okay, okay, we'll cast a woman. It wasn't like they weren't going to, but it just reinforced what
Yeah,
they,
yeah.
and it was good fodder against any nervous Nellies at the network who were going, okay, guys, we're all for this woman idea, but if you can't find somebody, you can't find somebody. Let's just move on. You
So
know,
speaking of fodder, we got one of our best fodder bringers here. Nathaniel's got some great fodder for us. I think there's something like he
I
just
no,
brings it to us. Feed us, Nathaniel, with your comments.
I, I've got it on ebook, The Fodder Bringers. It's
The
a great
fodder.
book. Okay.
That's also a great episode of the Next Generation.
Mhm.
There's something in the last lower decks. Oh no, it went away. Let me bring it back. There's something in the last lower decks that I think is worth discussing. The limits of positivity, sex, body, whatever. How the need to affirm oneself can run against deep personal feelings and experiences. So I think this kind of speaks to last week's episode
Mhm.
where Boimler That's the Starfleet approved way of saying his name. You got to bounce. You got to Boimler.
Oh,
Um,
I was just gonna say, hey, Boims, but okay.
he's hanging out with the what are they called? The captains, the captain crew, the captain wannabes,
The red shirts.
the red shirt. Is that what they call themselves?
What a joke! Did you not watch the episode? Yeah,
I know. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, were they called the red shirts? There's no way they could have been called the red shirt, but it's lower decks. Of course, they were called the red
of course they
shirts.
were called. And they're all non. They're like, why is that a? Of course, this is 100 years after the original red shirts, but some
I
things.
love it. I love it. My favorite scene in in that episode is where they're like, "We got to do something," and then the Starfleet code says blah blah blah, and then like the crew's getting like, and then like someone else jumps up, "Fear is defined by blah blah," and they're like, "Huh?" And Boimler's, "Aren't you gonna do something? The crew's being attacked," and then they're like, "We are doing something. We're inspiring the crew."
We're
And
making
Boimler,
captain speeches.
yeah, we're in captain speed. And Boimler's like, "We are the crew. Come on, go do something." Wonderful, wonderful moment right there. But there is Nathaniel's comment is a really great one because it makes me think of a lot of what's been said around ideas of toxic positivity, and also some of the limits of
I had
only.
not heard that term before, but
Oh,
I
you
took
haven't heard it? It's a great term. It's like,
toxic positive, like
yeah,
blind,
like,
it.
oh, everything's great. Just keep working harder. It's gonna be fine. Like, just keep grinding away at it, Larry. We got this. We're gonna like just it's gonna be like totally cool. Just like keep on like keep doing it. Like it's gonna be just fine. Like just
Said the guy who's working at a startup.
yeah. Well,
I mean, some of those lines
ooh.
were coming pretty easy to you just then. So
Ooh, Larry. Ooh, cut pretty close there, Larry. Well, this is the thing.
said the entrepreneur here. So okay,
Well, there's both times in business, which is a startup and entrepreneur, and in the media world and all of that sort of stuff. You have to know when to cut your losses, quite literally. You have to know what's working, what's not working, and so in
you
business,
have to know when to hold them,
yeah,
and you
in
have to know when to fold them.
that's
Yeah,
good advice, right? So that's
great old
true.
Star Trek song. Yeah,
It's good business advice, but it's also there's a huge impact here with ourselves too, and mental health. Um, like knowing when you need to walk away from something, knowing when you need to take a break,
Mhm.
knowing when the environment that you're in is toxic for you, knowing one of the things I talk about a lot with when I was practicing full time, I worked with a lot of young adults, people in their teens and 20s. And one of the things that often would come up is this idea of pruning friendships. And I would tell people, when you're young, your friendships are really about who's next to me, like who's my next door neighbor, who can I play with. And when you get into your 20s, you start pruning these friendships. Like, who actually is a good friend to you and who is not? And who do you want to maybe start distancing away from? And who do you want to get closer to? So there's so many ways in which um, just focusing on positives is really not helpful, especially for raising kids too. You got to give kids feedback when they're doing something bad or when their performance is not good. If someone is trying to learn,
or under par,
yeah, like if someone is
not up to their potential. Yeah,
if someone's trying to learn how to read and they keep saying something wrong and you're like, good job, well, they're gonna learn it that way. There's times where you got to give corrective feedback. There's times, yeah, when especially when you're trying to teach someone something. Like I mentioned this during our Zoomy chatty thingy, but my daughter had just learned like moments ago before we did that how to ride a bike unassisted. And there's times where you got to fall to get to that point where you're riding.
is this
So
a Kirk scrape knee speech? We have to get a little bloody. We have to scrape our knee.
gotta
Something
get a little bloody bones.
that's it. Yeah.
A little
Uh,
blood's good for you.
something. I don't know. It's from the Apple or something. I don't know. No, this is sounding like the problem with participation trophies here and helicopter parents and all of that. Yeah.
Now that sounds like a Star Trek Discovery title. The problem with and the other thing, I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, but if Nathaniel's interested, defensive pessimists too. So some people actually benefit from thinking a bit when they're in a challenging situation. Some people benefit from thinking about all the ways they're going to succeed. Some people benefit from the opposite, thinking about all the ways they might fail, and that helps them to prepare and it helps them manage their anxiety and stress. So there's a lot of diversity out there. So thank you for that fodder.
We just ran through about 3 show themes for the future.
That's what we like to do. We like to blow out our best show ideas and then never use them.
Never go back to them again. People are like, we voted on stuff weeks ago, Larry. Where are those titles? Where are those themes? They're there. They're there.
They're there.
But we're also looking at when we do this, we're looking at the episodes. Hey, can I do a shout out to? I think Euron has been with us before from Wales, but I'm just going to say hi because
Welcome.
It's been a while, and I don't know if we get into it. Oh, there we go. I was done. Anyway, you're watching the chat here. I'm trying to catch up too.
Yeah, we've got a few good ones right over here. Scott says, following up on what we were discussing earlier with Star Trek Discovery, I remember hearing, maybe on the Ready Room, that Fuller's later plan was to have been in the Mirror Universe from the beginning, and that would be the surprise. That would have been quite the surprise.
Yep. I still would like to, at some time, I'll get with him and see what his original notes were for when he wanted an anthology series that jumped from era to era to era. And it wasn't so much that it was going to be set 10 years before Kirk and Spock, but that's the first season.
It would
start
yeah.
And then jump to some time, like after Kittimer, didn't jump every 30 years or something and get into all these different eras that we haven't seen close.
I would have loved that show so much. Yeah. Heidi says, book idea, psychology in Star Trek with behind-the-scenes examples. Heidi, a friend of mine, Travis Langley, and his colleagues have written a book about the psychology of Star Trek. You can go check it out. I don't think there's much behind-the-scenes stuff, but that's what we got Dr. Trek for.
See? So it's an unlicensed book. It's like more academic. Is it laymanable or is it really
laymanable? It's definitely laymanable, but each chapter takes a different theme and has a different author and stuff. So check it out if you're interested in that. We've got a lot of comments going on here, folks. Give us some more questions
with the lifers. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Glenn says fodder of Khan. Oh man. Give us some more questions, folks. Christoph says Ira would have been a great showrunner for Section 31 series. Scott Martin, DC Fontana, rest in peace. Yeah.
Zahir, back when you threw this question out, you didn't do the opening clause. Zahir actually, the one about what's our biggest disagreement.
Yeah.
Zahir started by saying, besides the Kelvin verse, what is the Doctor's biggest? And that's all we talked about was the Kelvin. You didn't give me the caveat or the caveat. But other than that, have we had? And I tried to say that we haven't really had a disagreement. It was just that's just my opinion about it. It's not like I want to go erase Kelvin universe from the Star Trek timeline. Oh, that's kind of a mind bender. But I don't know what else we've really disagreed about.
Here's a question from Jared. Doctor Who, Jared.
What?
Wrong franchise. Doctor Who fandom was a place of joy yesterday after the announcement of Russell T Davies as showrunner. Is there? Here's the Star Trek part. Is there anyone from the production side of Trek history whose return would create such a feeling among the Trek fan community?
Well, we were here 5 years ago, when they announced Brian as the showrunner for Discovery. And I was in shock because I thought they would, of all the veteran, high-ranking writer, showrunner types, everybody was tied up with something. Like Ron was tied up with I think I've said this before, I know at least one showrunner type now who was begging to be not let out of his contract, but just said, can I just go do this on the side while I'm not working on this? And his studio bosses said, "What are you kidding? No way." And that was before history took another turn a little bit later. But uh, when they announced Brian, I was shocked because Brian was like the highest running available, the highest ranked Trek favorite, veteran among those who were open to be able to do it. And then we know how that happened. So, what was the question? Who we'd like to see,
Who
or
would we? Yeah, who coming back would create that same
so
level
now
of
that we've
joy?
gone, but in 2015, the idea of what would it's kind of like that wide open. How can it go? Well, now that there's been a system and a structure and a hierarchy put down, and we're watching new people come to. We've watched Mike McMahon do Lower Decks, and we're going to see the Hageman brothers do Prodigy, and we're seeing people come over. But as far as a veteran, um, I mean, like Ira's floating around out there, and Renee is, and Manny Koto is floating around out there. Although I don't know if his politics may make him not on the top. I'm saying that, um, not extreme, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think Nick Meyer was going to be involved with this.
Yeah, Nick Meyer.
Was
Yeah,
in for a while and out, and then they gave him that other offer deal. And I think I hope it's not dead, but who knows? They say Starfleet Academy is not dead; it's still there. So there's the years are going by, and the list is starting to dwindle. But it'd be if a lot of Mike Sussman would be good being on staff if not running a show.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
he would never say yes. He would never say yes, but I would love to see Ron Moore come back to Star Trek in some
Well,
way.
never say. Ron was told me around 2012. I said, "Well, what would you do with a new show?" And there was this feeling then. They were like, "Oh, there's too much canon. You could never do one now." And I just remember going, and Iris said the same thing about the same time, like the middle of the fallow years when I'd done my videos and blog for about 4 years and was talking to them. And I was just like, "Well, you little, what do you mean? Stop. This is your franchise, damn it. What are you doing walking away and saying it's hopeless? Where's a Kirk Picard
Well,
speech when you need one?"
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
but my
yeah.
thing is, I think now everybody has gone through the universe of what can be done,
Yeah.
both with Trek and they've seen Game of Thrones, they've seen big cinema TV happen, and they've done it themselves. And now, like Ron's done, besides Battlestar, he's done the Outlander, whatever it is.
Oh.
I mean, they've all seen it happen. So nearly 10 years ago, their attitudes, I think, have all changed now that time is the fire in which they've updated their opinions.
um so I would love to see him come back
Yeah. So I think
because I think he's also so much of his work after Deep Space
in the
Nine
expanse.
was so influenced as trying to do something different than Star Trek, and I think he's learned so much from running these different shows.
I,
Uh,
well, he's comfortable in his skin about not having to prove something.
yeah, I just and I just one of the things I appreciate so much about Ron is not only is he such a talented writer and showrunner, but he also is such a fan and gets the fans, has so much love for the fandom. So it's interesting they told you that, Larry, because I can understand someone in the late 90s, early 2000s writing Star Trek feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so, there's so much canon. But now we're at a point where it's like, yeah, there's so much canon, like go whatever direction you want.
Just
Um,
yeah, they never
Phil
stopped the novelists. Yeah,
Phil here in their community has given me an idea. Manny Koto. What if Manny Koto came back?
I said Manny a minute ago.
You did? All
Yeah,
right.
I'd love to see Manny have a chance to hack in at it. I hope maybe he can get that chance. I'm just saying he has a little more conservative politics,
Mm,
or the way he wrote 24, the ticking,
yeah, that's true.
the torture is okay if you've got a ticking clock thing, which was the mantra of the Bush years. So I don't know if, I don't know. I don't want to go
And
there.
Phil, speaking of Manny, Phil had a question: was Enterprise season 4 better because of Manny Koto taking over, or because they felt they had more freedom because they knew it was the last season? I don't think they. I don't think they were. They didn't start the season believing it was going to be the last season. A lot of signs were pointing that way.
We've K4'd this, I think, before. I mean, it was. The writing was kind of on the fourth season was really a borrowed year. It was really going to be canceled after three,
Season 3.
and yeah, and they stepped in. But Manny was writing before they went to the every episode's a throwback to the original series, uh, but which is what
Yeah,
the show should have been beginning. But he was there halfway through. That's why he got handed the reins to do the last year because he'd already made an impact.
in
Was it
season
military?
3. Season
Yeah.
3 had a heavy hand in that one.
Well, he came in midway
Yeah.
and made a huge impact midway, and he was very
Yeah.
down to earth.
Yeah.
I just remember him being like locked in his office, not locked, but like he wasn't out talking, chatting. Like, who is this mystery guy that's the new writer? And I see
Right.
on, and and I didn't know if he was going to be very standoffish, and he was fine to talk to at the end of that season. He was just like, I got to get my work done, and then I'll talk to you, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But that with that work ethic and that product, then that's why they went when the network said, "Okay, you got one last year, but you two aren't going to run the show. We're gonna, give it to somebody else, and you guys sit back and EP." And they're
Well,
like,
then according to Phil, Phil's question is, was season 4
"Oh
so
yeah,
beloved because of Manny, or because it was the last season and they gave him a lot more free reins?
well, I would say both,
Both,
but
yeah.
it wasn't like they went, "Oh, let's just give up and give it to Manny." They were told it was because of Manny, and it was because he had kind of earned it. But the whole reason why the shakeup and who was show running was like it came from that was part of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a question from Libby. Here's a question.
So somebody else lesser could have been standing there, and it wasn't him, and maybe not have had the belovedness that the last year and the turnaround feeling that the last year
Yeah,
had.
we could have gotten more space
Yeah.
Nazis. Here's a question. At least early Trek was very human centric. What species of intelligent being do you see as being the real leaders of the Federation? There can be more than one. In my humble opinion, the Vulcans just think they are the best. Hmm.
That's one thing. That's almost the biggest thing I think in the last. It was like an accident. The whole thing of Spock and the Vulcans being the first superstars of the original series, and the reason why it was that the alienness and differentness was Vulcans, and then that carried over through everything so much that Next Generation, the whole infamous, we're not going to lean on anything of the original series. We're going to go use the universe and go lean on something else. So it's like no Klingons, Romulans, Vulcans. So you got adversaries, but Vulcans. So there was like that whole thing of the camera finding that one Vulcan blue suit guy in the pilot of the Farpoint pilot. It's like, look, there's a Vulcan, and then the Vulcan is walking along with his kid when they're evacuating. And it's like, oh my God, there is a Vulcan that we haven't and it was a big thing when the Vulcan cadet was in Coming of Age and Wesley's. It's like, look, there's a Vulcan character talking. Oh my God, that was like a big thing because they had pulled so far back away from that, and it wasn't like they're going to go, we're going to do Klingons as the next big race. It's just that just evolved. What was her question? Ended up here. I've got a point to make.
Who would be the most non-human centric?
Oh yeah. So the whole pullback away from Vulcans after Vulcans made original fandom, and then to pull back from that, kind of created its own canon eventually. As in, when we bring Vulcans in, I mean, the Sarek saga was a little bit, but as you got into DS9 and you even before Lower Decks and Discovery and all that, the snarky and Enterprise especially. Enterprise totally, it's like, wait, do you know how to write Vulcans? Are you sure about this? And then as they textured the Sarek family and Sarek to see that, yeah, they weren't this monolithically benevolent pacifist species. There's a lot of contradiction and internal stuff, and it fleshed them out. But that attitude about, we secretly think we're the best is hysterical, but it is kind of what's going on there. So, I don't know the whole thing of the human centricity, like everything is on Earth, and you can say, well, that was needed in 2161, but 200 years later, is there a tension from that? It's kind of like, well, in the beginning, Washington D.C. was located where it is because it's a compromise between the North and the South states.
It was to
Now
bring the
it's
capital south. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a meaningless thing. Well, yeah, and now it's kind of like, well, that's kind of meaningless. Now it's just very East Coast, and it's like it might as well be New York, except it's not. It's those things. Is it time to update the?
Yeah, this is something I
It's a
think
thread I wish they'd play with. That's why my
me
Star Trek West
too.
movie
Me
I would love to
too.
see done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, me too. Um,
The old guys like the Andorians and Tellarites, like what do they think about how things are going? Much less all the new ones
well,
coming up.
I'm so team Andorian, and I know you're so team Tellarite, and I
Got the
really hate.
alliteration. Got the alliteration.
Not only one of the things that Discovery has shown us is not only is the Federation so human centric and English centric and Earth centric, but Enterprise uh, actually showed us more of this and a little bit of Discovery, but the Starfleet is also like Earth design centric. The starships really, we sort of like dumped all the Vulcan technology. They're like, let's go with this NX-01 style. Like, all right, those nacelles look cool. No, the Vulcan starships are the coolest looking. Why did we go with those designs? Those are sleek and they're more advanced technology. Like, why do we adopt
But
Starfleet
in the
technology?
alternate universe, the adopts Vulcan technology is how we got to the Jetsons. So I'll just do 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 do
Yeah.
do
Um,
do do
my
do
my
do
answer to this is
do.
I think the Andorians played a real heavy role here, at least with technology. They must have. And yeah.
Hey, it's just as a timer. When did you have to bug out?
I got about 5 to 10. Let's do some lightning
Okay,
round questions here.
okay, yeah.
I've been saving some. Let's
Oh, good.
let's
Okay,
do them fast.
okay. Do it
Daniel.
fast. They'll catch us.
Daniel says, "Do you think the quality of new Star Trek shows has been improving or getting worse?
Oh,
Way up. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think the production value has always been great, Daniel, but it's more the
Uh,
writing and the connection to
Cohesiveness
yeah,
and big picture. Yeah.
and social commentary, like social commentary, writing, hope. Like I think Discovery, the most recent season of Discovery, has gotten us.
Figuring out how to do serialize in a Star Trek filter.
Yeah, yeah. I think Picard's still like we'll see.
Mhm.
Uh, but Lower Decks I think has been pretty solid for
Yeah.
beginning to end. Dan asks, "What do you think is the funniest parts of Star Trek?" That's a tough question. That is a
Oh,
really tough question.
funny. You mean like specific? I mean, I think when you've got, well, aside from like Lower Decks,
Yeah,
um,
besides Lower Decks.
because but it's not like ha ha. You can watch painful humor in, especially Next Generation. It feels like the original series. There are some funny moments that were really organically created, and then you've got Tribbles and Piece of the
Well, and
Action.
then you have like the flute coming on during the funny moment, of TOS.
The flute coming. Oh, you mean like the music scoring?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
There's like the end of the episode, the denouement. It's like,
Oh,
we're all fine. Ha ha ha. Spock
oh
says
yeah.
something funny,
That's what I
raises
call
an
the
eyebrow.
Flintstone ending. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the Flintstone. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then the music.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, there'll be no Tribble at all.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the belly as we all laugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, it's when the straight lacedness of a lot of Trek, when you're allowed to go back on that, then it's fodder. Speaking of fodder, part two, it's fodder for humor, which is what Lower Decks minds. It's what meme culture has done for 10 years. Lower Decks is just like a whole new level of Star Trek meme culture,
Yeah. I
woven in narrative stories.
I think the next generation is incredibly funny. And I think a lot of that humor is in moments
They were
with
so bound up. Then when
what
they, but when you had Mary Mann, psh, that was like, oh my God, that's like such a radical
like I
change.
love I love all the Picard moments. I love Picard saying to the Admiral, I'm a bit of a role model. I love Geordi saying, Data, that was not funny. I just think there's so much. Oh, so many lovely Picard reading Shakespeare to the Ferengi. Like there's so many lovely moments, and you're right. Yeah, Larry, you're right. Although a lot of those moments have been memeified. I was just recently seeing a meme about TNG where where it's like Star Trek, where you bring the most dangerous combustible material and you test it in your engineering next to the warp core. Like it just had all these images of like Jordy shooting a phaser at like a rock right next to the warp core.
It's got shielding. It's got heavy duty
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
They love it. They're comfortable with their.
Oh man. Christoph asks, Ollie, have you ever done any acting? No. Once.
Didn't you hear him say he was practicing to be a psychologist?
I play one on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a play my senior year in college. It was like a play my friend wrote, and I was probably the second lead in that. Was I any good? I think I overacted. Not that you'd be able to tell.
Well, that was interesting.
Yeah,
that's
once.
that's the friend line. Wow, Ollie, that was really interesting.
You made some choices in that role. Yeah.
I did.
Zahir asks, do you have an episode? Larry, do you have an episode of Trek that speaks to you the way Tapestry speaks to Dr. Ali?
Wow. Or the way that
That's a great question.
Plato's stepchildren spoke to my friend Dan Madsen, with the short person. Wow. Well, like all the years it was just original series, I had my favorite episodes, but they were more like it wasn't like speaking to me. I just enjoyed them.
Larry, this episode is for you.
This is for you and your family. This is so weird, but I'm gonna say this is so against type and against what I usually say and what people hear out of me. But I really okay. I'll say, and especially as the years have gone by, even Drumhead a little bit on Next Generation,
wow.
but
Yeah.
even more so Distant Origin on Origin.
Distant Origin on Voyager.
Voyager, because what they say to people who are locked. Distant Origin was just the retelling of Copernicus and what Galileo, religion. I will say religion, dogma over reality, and we're seeing it now with people who, I'm gonna go have my horse paced, and you can take your stupid science, and go jump in the lake, and I'm just like. What did we just ran back 1,000? You didn't care for the last 1,000 years, so which is what Distant Origin is to me, with it layered on with here's an official orthodoxy, take your parallel to Earth or whatever. But that whole thing against here's just the common sense. Why do we have brains? Why are we doing high or low, theory, experimentation, new theory processes and in a different way? It's not science versus religion, but the drumhead is the same thing. It's like here's out of control irrationality, mob violence couched in a very, starts off with good intentions, and we wind up with McCarthyism, or we wind up with Sadieism, from the drumhead. And it's just like, oh my God, have we been through this before? Do we have to, I am sorry that, what is it Will said, the short memories of American voters is what keeps our politicians in office. It's like, we've been through this before, guys. Why do we have to repeat the same? I'm sorry you slept through 8th grade American history or world history, but or 7th grade science or whatever it is you slept through. But do we all have to be dragged down because you slept through something that is not rocket science to all of us? So I don't know. I've never thought of that question that way, but maybe
it's a great answer, and we also have a great history
and
of ending these AMAs with a question that kind of stumps Larry. I think each time we've done a question that takes Larry and goes like,
is that a thing?
It's totally a thing. Larry, this has been a lot of fun to do this AMA with you. So tell me where you're going to be next week, as the end of music or end of show music starts to play. So, you're traveling this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, guys and gals. This next week's on me. We're going to be in big time Yuma, Arizona for YumaCon which is a small con, which I'm looking forward to, and it's a road trip with my friend John Champion, so that'll be fun.
From Mission Logs, another Roddenberry podcast.
Yes,
in
it
addition
is.
to Trek Files.
And yeah, and our open house for I'm slow to get this. I'm trying to get the guest named this week, and it's somebody I think everybody would be excited about if I can pull it off. And it's not on the guest; it's on the guest's handlers. So we're trying to do that. But one way or the other, right now, our open house for Portal 47 is for October 20th. It's free. We open up the portal gates once a year on our anniversary and have a big guest and have door prizes and all kinds of fun stuff. So be ready for that when I can give all the details, and because that'll just be in 3 or 4 weeks. But that's the next big thing coming up aside from you. And I have a panel at San Diego.
At the Thanksgiving.
The weird little Thanksgiving thing. So that's happening.
Yeah.
And seems like something else, but that's good for now.
Scott said we've had at least one Dr. Trek cameo in Star Trek, so Dr. Ali needs to catch up. Well, I haven't cameoed in Star Trek. I have cameoed on StarTrek.com as a model for a Star Trek jacket. You'll have to join. I'll post a photo of that.
That's not a model. That's a horrible example. Okay.
You have to join our Facebook group to be able to see that. I'll try to find it and maybe show it on our next episode.
The Life Support Live Facebook group?
The Life Support Live group, yeah. So, folks, I'm gonna be around at Mattu on social media. I've got a new episode of the Psych Show coming out this week, all about transgender mental health. So definitely check that out. Larry, you are around on social as well.
At Larry Nemecek on Twitter and at Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Instagram, YouTube. Please go like and subscribe. LarryNemecek.com.
Hope you enjoyed this compressed, time-displaced episode of Life Support Live, folks. It's been a joy starting the day with you, and I wish you all to live long and prosper.
We'll let you know about next week. Trek well, everybody.
Bye, folks.